Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, as always, joined by Callum and James in the studio. How you going, guys?
Good.
Alum can't make it today, unfortunately, but we have a very special guest in the studio, David Yuille.
Darcy.
Darcy. No. Okay.
Pause. Pause.
No, we'll keep it in.
Keep
that
going.
in, Darcy.
Part of the
Sorry,
value.
Darcy.
That's all right.
Break
Thanks.
part of the
ruins
start of the
the
show.
show.
That's
Thanks,
all right.
Steve. It's all
It's
good.
live. Wow, okay. There you go.
Well, you're never going to
Now
live
there's
that down.
David Yates, and I was just like, wait a second.
Yeah.
Getting confused. All right. Darcy Yuille he's a filmmaker. We got another
Yes.
filmmaker in the studio. It's
Someone
always exciting
actually
for us.
We managed
wants
to
to
trick
talk
another
to
one.
us.
It's coming to the
I
studio.
know. Someone who
absolute
actually makes movies. It's great.
Yeah.
He's
Not
made
just complains about them.
look, he's made a movie called One Punch, which is coming out very soon. It's amazing. It's about Generally, it's about a coming of age story about a boy who I guess he has some difficulties at school and
Yeah.
like family drama, and kind of it all culminates
Yeah.
in
A night out.
A night out with
Yeah.
a one punch attack. I suppose.
Yes, absolutely. And then the repercussions of what happens afterwards, and those kinds of things. Shall I keep?
We were
Yeah,
we
keep
were-
going. What? So it's not quite out yet. So
Yeah,
we're not going to spoil it or anything.
No,
But,
we
it's-
should establish that Darcy wrote, directed, produced, and shot the movie.
Yeah, I did some editing and some color grading as well. I did have some co-producers, so particularly one co-producer, Shirley Tan, who came on board and was really did the production management, because it's very hard to produce when you're looking at a camera and setting up a shot. But yeah, definitely was able to do a lot of that stuff, and the main reason was the choice to shoot on a smartphone as well. So shoot the whole film on a smartphone, because for so long in my career I'd worked on large productions, and I'd just seen how long it takes when change lens, moving closer to this thing. Yeah.
Well, that's the
Heavy
interesting.
equipment.
That's the interesting. That's the interesting thing about your film. One Punch is because you shot it on the smartphones. It's gives you that freedom and that what do you call it?
maneuverability.
A bit of speedier production.
Also coming from, I guess, a place of ignorance, it doesn't look like a smartphone movie.
No.
Oh yeah.
Like, it doesn't look kind of like,
It's-
you see footage
I'm
recorded
sure-
on a smartphone.
I'm sure you've talked to a lot of people about it and said, "Oh, we shot on a smartphone." I think automatically people think of it in a certain way,
Like holding up your phone in front of your face and pressing the record
absolutely.
button. Yeah.
and it's maybe to explain it to people. I mean, maybe you could explain it to
Sure.
people. It doesn't just look like you shot it on your phone
It looks like a
in the
serious...
backyard.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you took steps to make it look
It's
like
a cinematically shot
Yeah,
film.
it looks like a movie.
yeah.
Well, that's
traditional
fantastic
film,
that
yeah.
you're seeing. I mean, I think when you see it in the cinema, which it's about to go into, it really does hold up, and it looks a lot better. And the reason for that was, I've got a history of working in the camera department and being a cinematographer, but also just really, really testing. And then the whole ethos of the film came about by me being in the industry for a long time and going, I'm never going to get the chance to make a film. If I wait for someone to fund me, it's just not going to happen. So I just went, I'm going to do whatever. I'm going to do whatever I can and just make a film. And then making the decision to shoot it on a phone took a lot of the pressure away. So it didn't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
It's just just do it.
And even all through the whole process, I just kept saying to myself, it's just on a phone, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And that was quite freeing, And so the things that we did that made it work was, we don't have a lot of lights. So we're going to try and shoot this scene at this perfect time, because that's when the light looks best. So there's a park in Coburg, the skate park, where we scheduled to have the scene shot there at that time, because we knew that the sun was going to be hitting the horizon, and we get this beautiful piece of lighting.
Yeah.
Was some of that also, I guess, was it also kind of some of it would be remediated by having, I guess, different filters on the phone? Were we able to help with software, and that's kind of built in, and you don't have to worry about like external camera filters or lenses or anything else?
I think you have to push it a little bit further. So obviously we had to use neutral density filters, which are like sunglasses, right? They cut down the light, because the phone's actually pretty sensitive in the middle of the day. And so there's an app on the phone that you can use called Film It Pro, which a lot of people have used. They used it on Tangerine, which was a famous smartphone film.
It's a great movie.
And then we also used an anamorphic lens, which is literally just a lens that squeezed the image. So you got a really wide image recorded onto the sensor without having to crop the top and bottom to get the wide look.
Oh, okay.
So having that little bit of extra glass on the front, some filters, really just to cut the light out because it's, Australia's really bright most of the time. And then, just adding a little bit of light here and there. We sort of had we paid 3 crew members for the film, and that was makeup, a gaffer, which is a lighting person, and sound recorders. So we had to make sure, obviously, that the sound was good. That's a big thing, and then the gaffer was the person who'd just be, how about if I just chuck a little light here? So we had these battery-powered LED lights, which you could kind of take anywhere. And then makeup just made that difference with, the way people look and keeping the silhouette of the actor looking consistent.
Natural,
Yeah.
Well, I guess, because you mentioned Tangerine, which is a great movie that was shot on a phone, and I think Soderbergh has made at least 2 movies that were shot on phones. And so it's just we're at an interesting point in the last... Because honestly, other than maybe up until 5 years ago, you probably couldn't do this, right?
Yeah, not in any way that do it justice.
Not in this quality.
Yeah, I think the iPhone 5 was the one that they used to shoot Tangerine. Yeah. And
that's still a while ago.
But there was something that camera was able to do, plus they shot at a certain time of day. Yeah. But what they really did with that was they used the camera in a way that, if I wanted to move a camera and walk along a street and, track 2 people running down the street and then getting in a car and then driving somewhere, that's really expensive to do with a large camera.
Yeah.
But with the iPhone, like you guys we were talking before about using the location of 8-bit in the city, we were able to do a shot where it starts inside the restaurant and then follows a character outside, and then they're talking to someone else, and then we come back around and have another conversation, all through lots of people and traffic, and no one batted an eyelid.
Because it's so low profile.
Low profile, and it's so slim, and you don't have to worry about cables and people running behind.
I didn't even think
it's like the northern suburbs Melbourne version of leaving Las Vegas. I love it.
Well, speaking of, the film was shot in Melbourne in April 2019.
Yeah.
And what's very close to home for us.
Yeah. Sometimes uncomfortable.
Yeah, we were watching it and being like, oh, I know there. Oh, that's Coburg. Oh, yeah. Sometimes it was a bit too close to home, but I guess that helped with connecting to the film. As well.
A lot of people have noticed bits of because there's so many fantastic parts of Melbourne that you just don't see on screen. Whenever you see Melbourne, you see Flinders Station, you see the bridge, you see the Arts Centre, the MCG maybe, and St Kilda for some reason a lot.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because when people let's be honest, in Australia as well as out, whenever they think of our country, it's Sydney.
Yeah,
or like you said, it's the big key landmarks in Melbourne.
Yeah,
but it's really interesting to see a movie that's set in I say authentic because you filmed it in such a guerrilla filmmaking style. Authentic Melbourne suburbs.
Also, in a real normal
because
place.
In these productions which take place in suburban Sydney or suburban Melbourne, these higher budget ABC productions or even Channel 10 productions, it's all crafted to look a certain way. It's not, like you said, it's not guerrilla. It's not real people in the street. It's all, we have to do it this. I mean, you still do it at a certain time of day, but it's all actors in the streets doing whatever. Yeah. But in this film, it's all authentic people going about their business, authentic streets. Yeah. Because I'm assuming you didn't get permits for every single location.
We did get, we inquired about permits, but quite often you don't need a permit if you have a low footprint. So, for example, shooting in the city, the rule is if you've got 6 people or more, you need to get a permit. But if it's just you with a camera and you're not putting a tripod on the ground, you don't need to actually get a permit. So we had permission to shoot on the train from Metro Trains. So they said, you can do it between this amount of time. But they were okay with that because we didn't use any lights. We were just
Yeah.
on
That's
the
awesome.
train
Yeah,
with it.
that, and again, your footprint is minimal.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to shut down a
It's not
business.
shutting down the train
Yeah.
line or
There were some people who were a bit disturbed by the content that we shot on the train, but they just moved, they moved down the carriage.
Again, if you see, that's good though. If you see
yeah.
something happening in public,
Yeah.
people should be concerned.
But that's also a question we had
Yeah.
was, did you ever have an experience shooting the movie where someone came up and thought you were like really doing something?
The drunken
Dodgy.
acting and such.
Yeah, because there's characters who get into fights and there's like drug deals and there's a
Yeah.
couple of like dodgy
Dodgy situations.
and you're
Yeah.
just there with your filming on the phone. Did did the cops rock up? Or?
Cops never rocked up. The closest we got was we were shooting in one alleyway, and the scene's not great because someone decided to empty every single rubbish bin in the alleyway. So we had the truck with the flashing lights and the signs.
Yeah.
So we ended up shooting 2 takes of one shot as a master and just had to move on, which was a bit of a shame. But most of the time, so the nightclub stuff where the dodgy stuff happens, we hired a location, which is Rubik's, which is around this area as well, and got some extras in. We had some amazing people came in and were extras for us, which was lovely. And yeah, I think most of the time when they're all walking down the street and they're kind of drunk, everyone's just like, yeah. They're just, because they can't see the camera. And so they just think that they're just being, crazy drunk.
To call it a documentary style film is not the right term, but there is that element of, because you have that minimal footprint and the way you filmed it in real locations, it does have that kind of realistic look to it. And that feel to it, which helps to ground it in reality, which is obviously kind of what the film's going for.
I think we're in an interesting crossroads here as well, because the new iPhone, for instance, is the rumor is it's going to have 8K.
Wow.
And it's going to be interesting to see what happens moving forward with the capabilities of phones and modern technology.
Oh, in future it'll be amazing, but I think to shoot now on 8K, like, it would take up so much memory that you could only shoot a very short.
The only thing I can think of is if what you were filming was getting sent to a cloud service somewhere.
Yeah.
But even then, how expensive would that be for an indie budget? I don't know.
Yeah, so I went and got little adapters so I could, change the footage, like essentially like little drives. But actually, we got through each night. That was another amazing thing. Like, each night you get to the end of the night and you just take the footage off your phone. It didn't use that much space, even though we shot in 4K. Actually, the only weird thing was I was lining up a shot once and I got a phone call and I hadn't turned my phone off.
I didn't even think of
so
that.
I was like, because I was literally using my phone that was my phone. And so normally I'd turn it off and put it on airplane and shoot, but then I was getting the shot and then someone rang me. So that wasn't great. But
the movie looks amazing. It's going to be interesting to see. We were fortunate enough to get a screener, which was given to us by a streaming platform. But I would be very interested into seeing it in the movies and seeing all, like, however it gets released.
It's a good looking movie.
It's a good looking movie.
So we have our own. We have the Tuesday Review Cinema, which is our 4K projector screen at home.
Budget.
But I thought about putting it on the projector, but I'm like, since I don't know, how we didn't know how the film was made. I was like, maybe we'll just watch it on the TV instead. Yeah. But now I kind of know. I'm like, I wonder if it'll look good blown up.
We've got a DCP if that helps, a digital cinema package, and
really?
Put it through, and it's about to screen. So it's screening at the Lido and the Classic in Melbourne. And then there's we're going through this site called Demand Films, and what they basically do is they will pick up your film and help. They've got the platform for ticketing and for marketing and stuff like that, and their list of subscribers. And then basically they'll book a cinema. So they booked the Classic and the Lido, which are getting close to being sold out. That's their next Monday is at the Classic and next Tuesday is at the Lido. And then there's a screening in Geelong, I think towards the end of September as well, that's come about because a local person in Geelong's seen the film on the platform and has gone, I want to host a screening. Which you can do with this platform. So there's also someone in Mildura as well, which is really great that people out there in especially in the country, because I think they often I think the story will resonate with them a fair bit, because the actual narrative isn't just stuck in cities.
Yeah.
It's the same story in lots of different places.
It's about someone who's stuck,
Yeah.
like that they're kind of failing at school, but I
It's
personally think that maybe he would have done better at school if his brother wasn't slapping the books out of his hand. But
I'm glad you picked that up, though.
Yeah. Well,
but he also he's in being enticed into this other other element.
So let's rewind a bit and talk about like the origin of the story and how you got the film made, and like when did you come up with the idea? When did you start writing it?
This is the really cool thing about this process, called the Fielder method. No, just kidding. But there are connections to the Fielder method. So basically, I was working at a school that shall remain nameless in 2019, and I was about 3 months into 2019. It was maybe April or May, and I have a relationship with an acting school in Caulfield called 16th Street.
Yeah, I've been
which are fantastic, just a really great school. And what we used to do was I used to get the film students that I was teaching to shoot showreel scenes for these actors.
Yeah.
And on the one day that they shot this particular actor, I was actually away. So someone else had shot it. I came back and saw the rushes the next day, and I just went, there's something about this kid. There's something lost, there's something stuck about him, but there's also something really vulnerable. And so I just rang him up and I said, who are you? What are you, what are you doing? And then I went home and I really, really hated this job. I really didn't like it because I felt like it wasn't supported by the school. So I just went, I'm just going to make a film. And years ago, I'd done this course called Character-Based Improvisation, the Mike Leigh method, which is Mike Leigh, the British filmmaker, uses this method that's kind of shadowy. But what he basically does is he'll cast an actor first. He won't even have a script. Then you get the actor in, you ask the actor, so in this incarnation, for 30, 40 people that they know, and they'll give you examples. So let's work with Nathan, for example. I say to you, give me 40 people that you know. One of them might be Callum. And then we'll talk about all those people, and together we'll kind of choose one person who's really interesting. They've got, maybe they've got a weird way of saying things, or there's some kind of secret, or they're stuck, or all that kind of thing. And then I'd say, go and follow that person. Go and stalk them. No, go and hang out with them, which is where it sounds like the Fielder method. Go and get an acai. Maybe spill the bowl just a little bit. And then you'd follow that person and you'd try and focus on personal tics, personality traits, things they say. They might go, yeah, all good, mate, or something, or, they might scratch their head in a certain way. And then that actor will come back with those things, those kinds of bits of information, and we'll get rid of the name. So we'll go, okay, Callum doesn't exist anymore. We're going to call him this name. And then we just start improvising. So I go, okay, I'm going to send you out to this place. And it's very organic and it sounds really unstructured, but in the mess, what happens is that you start to you're doing this concurrently with different actors. And then you create improvisations. So for this film, the first improvisation I had was between the character of Matt and Teresa, the two main kind of characters.
Were those actors always those characters, or did you start with a couple of other actors and say, these are the characters I have in mind, and then when you made the film,
I had no characters in mind at all.
Yeah,
the characters,
just the actors, the story.
But I mean, is Alex, who plays the main character Matt, and Jessica, who plays Teresa, were they always them? It was always them too?
Yeah.
So they were always the principal.
Yeah. No, like the origin before you even started shooting. And
I cast them both because they had done the workshop, and you've probably noticed, or they did the shoot that we did, and you've probably noticed sometimes when you watch films about teenagers that everyone's like, almost 30. And so, whereas these kids they're still pretty, like they were 19, I think, so they're still pretty close to school leaving age.
The kids all look like kids,
age relevant.
Yeah. And so, but basically they both brought their list of characters to me, and then we developed their character and wrote their backstory and wrote their history.
Yeah.
And then, I was saying to Jess over here, there's this guy Matt you go to school with, he's a bit of an idiot, know. And then I was saying to Matt, or Alex, there's this girl Jess, you really like her.
Yeah.
And then the improvisation I did was he walks into the library to do some study and sees her studying there, and his goal is to get. So I gave him a goal every improv. So your goal is to get her phone number, and her goal was to get his brother's phone number. So there's always some kind of drama or conflict there. And it was really funny because I'm sitting in the corner of the library filming this this improv, and spying on this.
Yeah.
I think I was holding a book and just kind of doing this kind of thing, and
slowly turning into Nathan Fielder.
But no,
with your laptop with the suspender.
nobody noticed at all in the whole place. Like, this was the crazy thing. And then these two were doing their improv at a table, and then the librarian came over and told them to be quiet and go somewhere else, and so they had to go over to the so it was just this reality began to take over. And they were able to act their objective. And then from there, it just kind of, then I did another one with his brother, and then I did the dad and him. And then it ended up culminating in a big improv for over a couple of hours where they all had dinner together. And everyone turned up at this event. And Mirko, who plays the father, who's just phenomenal, he was actually a chef. So he's made the pasta from scratch and everything.
Yeah, because there's a scene where
they make pasta.
making pasta and cooking.
So
funny, we have this Italian friend, and he's
silent producer Christian.
Yeah, he's more Italian than Italians. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But he's watching
he
this,
likes to
and he
think
started
that.
complaining about the pasta.
Oh.
And so
We're like, shut up.
That's one for our back pocket.
No, that's really funny that you mentioned he was a chef, because we're not going to let him forget that one.
No, he's
Also, because there's a character named Christian in the movie,
Yeah.
and everyone's always like, "Shut up, Christian!
Shut the
Piss
fuck
off, Christian!" So that was so good for us because
Yes.
we're like, "Yes, exactly."
Yeah.
Please.
He was with us at the screener, and he was apparently going to try and make it here tonight.
yeah.
We were like, shut up, Christian, get off your phone.
Shut the fuck. Yeah.
Yeah,
So there
he's
were
one of those guys who just has his phone out the entire in the cinema. If he's one of the anyway. So it's really interesting to hear you talk about this exploratory method of filmmaking.
Yeah.
But I'm like, so did you have like an overall idea of where you wanted the narrative to go, or did you like discover it as you went?
A bit of both. I played cricket for a long time. I know this is a segue, but I'll come back around.
We do that all the time. Don't worry.
Yeah. So I was playing cricket one day with this group of guys, and we're playing a team, and one of the guys on the other team got really, agitated, and he headbutted someone on our team. And my friend Mitch, who was on the team with me, just controlled him, just put him in a headlock and put him on the ground. But then the other players on the other team came in and started hitting Mitch, and which was really dangerous. And he was just trying to stop what was going on. And what happened to me was I just went, I don't know. And the next minute I'm going in there and doing something. And afterwards, it was a really bad scene. It was a terrible thing to happen. And afterwards I really thought about why I reacted in that way. And what I came to understand was that I reacted that way because I've been taught how to act that way. And not by my parents necessarily, but really by society and peers and groups of people. And I didn't even think about it. And if I'd been stupider, I could have hurt someone. And anyone, like there was a guy who came in waving a cricket bat, right? And it's like, this is crazy. So where does this behaviour come from? And that was that was the sort of seed that I wanted to look at. And I knew when I met Alex that there was something, like it's just, all of these things kind of came together. And so I wanted to explore this idea, but from the perspective of the person who has perpetrated the act, because I remember listening to, who's the guy that, Justin Kurtzel, who directed Snowtown.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember him talking about Snowtown, how the original script was like the police come in, they investigate, they find out what's going on. And he kind of flipped the narrative to be, an exploration from inside. And I thought that's really interesting because in this particular case with one punch incidents, the person who gets hit, 99.9% of the time they don't even know it's coming and they've done nothing wrong. Yeah. So what is the behaviour that leads to the wrongful act?
It's really interesting because through most of the film, Matt's
the main character. Yeah.
He's positioned as like a.
Well, we won't spoil it because the screen.
Yeah, no. I mean, he's positioned as like a good-natured, trying to do his best young man. Yeah. But then events happen and all the characters start to kind of shift a bit in terms of
Yeah.
But, I mean, drugs and alcohol are involved, and so that's the primary catalyst, if you will, that changes everyone. But it's really interesting to see that the inclusion of drugs and alcohol can dramatically shift a person's personality, and that's real life too. That's not just it's writing a screenplay.
It's not just that's not the only factor.
No. I'm just saying, but that's probably like the catalyst which starts everything. Is that people who would normally be able to control themselves suddenly find that the walls are a bit thinner and they can.
Yeah. I mean, these kinds of events don't normally happen without drugs and alcohol involved. It's like
alcohol especially is a big one for one punch attacks.
The research. So I was very lucky that I was able to do some research while this acting stuff's going on. I spoke to the Victorian Forensic Society who do studies on these things, and I was able to speak to an amazing woman, Katerina Politai, who sorry if I've got your name wrong, Katerina.
Nathan knows all about that.
Right. His son,
David.
His son David.
Sorry,
her son's actually David, and David Kasai was
the precious of live radio.
Yeah, well, David Kasai was actually hit and killed in a one-punch incident in Rye, and Katerina agreed to talk to me, and she actually said a line that comes up in the film. So I'm interviewing her, and I'm talking to her about. And she's an amazing woman because she's got a lot of forgiveness in her heart, but she also has campaigned for this mandatory 10-year sentence. And she started a charity called Stop One Punch Can Kill, just put your hands down and walk away. And that's a really great message, I think. But she said a line to me like, if that had been my son who'd hit someone, I would be protecting him too. And I think the line similar to that comes up at the end of the film, which is... So a lot of the
perspectives,
absolutely perspectives. Because I don't think anyone goes out.
Well, people don't go out of their way to kill someone.
No,
not in these types of situations.
Not healthy people,
not generally anyway. I mean, I think in some situations that people go out going, we're going to go and hit someone.
Oh, it's happening especially like the back of the head.
There's a lot of people who are like, oh, let's go out and fight tonight. But in these one punch kind of situations, it's like it is accidental, if that's the right word, but it's like how can you take steps to prevent yourself from losing control, which is what you said about your own experience of like being mindful,
especially in group situations, because these things often
peer
happen
pressure
in
all that.
Drunken groups, people get
egos.
I can't remember. I can't remember. I'm not a scientist, so I can't remember the specifics, but I'm pretty sure there is something to gang violence, as in when you get a group of people together, a couple people wanting to incite violence can usually convince more people to join in, which is how like stampedes happen in a similar way. A couple people start, everyone gets excited and joins in, and then before you know it, things are happening.
The movie does deal with that, where it's just like, well, the dad thinks a certain way, so the brother has to think a certain way, so the youngest brother has to, and it's kind of a trickle down effect or something like that.
I think
pressures to conform.
And the sense that it's an environmental thing. I don't think we're born like that. So very deliberately in the beginning, the father hits the son, and then the son hits. The son, it doesn't hit, but he gets aggressive on the train. And so there's a chain reaction of you're going to treat me that way, so I'm going to treat you that way.
The cycle of violence.
I also think in society today, empathy is often looked at as weak.
That's also true.
Especially with toxic masculine kind of personalities. And
it's interesting, though, because it's meant to be changing, but...
It's meant to be.
Yeah.
Depends, I guess, in which area you are. Like in the northern suburbs, for instance, we see a lot of toxic masculinity still around.
Yeah. I think there's like the younger generations, us or even younger, it's just like starting to realize how important it is just to be kinder or whatever. But I think in terms of larger societal, like the people who make the rules, politicians, people in authority, it's still seen as weak to do the right thing, to be kind. And
it's a really interesting point, actually. When I listened to your podcast, I thought you guys were about 18, but you're actually 80, which, you look very good for being 80, but you're doing...
Is that bad that we sound like a bunch of whining teenagers?
No, I'm just joking.
We've had that feedback before, don't worry.
Back when we used to get comments on the iTunes, it was like, they're great until they start talking about politics.
Bring it on.
Yeah, like
we always say, the best thing to stop a lot of this, honestly, is give a kid a job in a supermarket and make him work the registers.
Yeah.
That's it.
Oh yeah,
And then you know what it's like.
Every politician and CEO should have to work
Yeah, that's
in
it.
retail.
Work on the till and
But
then give them a week.
They don't put people on tills anymore. That's the problem.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other discussion. But anyway, so you were working on the improv with the actors, and out of that came characters, and out of that came a story.
Yeah.
And then did you then go, hang on, guys, I'm going to go away and write a script, or did you keep working until everyone had the same story
Did you
together?
ever have to pivot?
Yeah, so the first conversation with Alex was June or July in 2018.
Yeah.
And the aim was to shoot the film in the Christmas holidays, like that sort of December 2018, which is crazy. Go from no idea, absolutely anything, to shooting a film in 6 months. And unfortunately, I just wasn't ready. I was like, we were close. We were about 2 or 3 weeks out, and we just went, nah, we're not ready. And I was writing the script at the same time, but I hadn't shown any of them the script, which is really interesting. So all they know is who their character is, what their relationships are. So we ended up rescheduling to April. My contract with the school that I was working at ran out at the end of December, and they hadn't reorganised a new contract. So I just said, I'm not coming back.
Yeah.
And I just went and did heavy pre-production on the film. And so when we were ready to shoot in April, I think they got the script maybe a week before the shoot. We sat down and we did a table read together. So they had some idea of the territory, but it's really interesting because I've been alongside writing it, but for them it must have been very strange.
Do you think it put a lot of pressure on your actors who are quite young to kind of, because method acting and improv is something that even the best actors in Hollywood can struggle with sometimes. It's hard for, I'm not an actor, but everyone will agree, it's hard to sometimes get in the role and deliver the lines in an authentic way. Do you think that your actors were under a lot of pressure to kind of find the right direction with such little, like, because normally you'd have a defined script and you just read the lines as they're written, but with this looser style of filmmaking?
I think in the reverse, actually, because when they read the script and we went through it, if there was something that I'd written that didn't sound right, they'd go, no, I wouldn't say that. I'd do this. And so that kind of informed a couple of changes. So Mirko, the father, for example, I'd written a speech for when he says his speech for Matt's birthday. But he went, I think I want to write something. And so he went away and wrote something the night before that scene.
Oh, okay.
And came back. And it was similar, but it was in his words, Carlo's words.
One thing we mentioned watching the film was that the language felt very natural from the kids. They're not kids. You know what I mean? The younger actors. We talked about that. Like, it's very, very natural because a lot of times, like when people try to write high schoolers, sometimes it can come off as kind of
cringy.
There's a weird balance because high schoolers do speak in a cringy way, but if you represent it in that way,
they swore an appropriate amount, maybe not the right swear words.
That's something you appreciate when you watch a movie about like northern suburbs teens. It's like, how many F-bombs? Oh, good.
Oh no, it was hard to pull the swearing. There wasn't that much swearing in the script, but that certainly came through. Yeah,
it's good. It's authentic.
We might go to a very quick break. We'll be right back after this. You are back on the Tuesday Review talking with Darcy Yuille about his movie One Punch, which is coming out soon. Okay, so we're talking about, I guess, behind the scenes and writing and character kind of stuff.
So the next question I had is, now that you're shooting the movie and you got the actor, working with the actors to flesh out their characters and to bring their own voice to the written dialogue, when you're actually shooting, how much of it was improvised versus just let's do it as it was written? By that point, were you just like, okay, we've locked this in?
Yeah, pretty much. The script was written and they were doing the script as it was. Any improvisations really would come. So the tradition when being on set, and this is something that I teach students and it's often not picked up on, is there's a 5-step process, which is you block it, you light it, you rehearse it, you tweak it, you shoot it. And so, we would block the scene, we'd get together, we'd go, okay, let's read the script and we'll just talk about where you're all moving and where do you want to move, because quite often it was the first time they'd been in the location and it was a natural location. But I had been to the locations and I had already thought about where I wanted to place the camera and how I wanted to use the camera. And sometimes that changed because of, garbage trucks and things like that. But most of the time it was like, okay, let's block it. Let's do the lines. Let's see, is everything working? and then we'd do so it was pretty much traditional filmmaking on the day. Yeah.
And you shot it pretty quickly, and it's quite impressive, like what you did.
10 days, 12 days with a couple of pickups because we had an actor who got lost one day and we had to reschedule his shoot.
I'm lost in all the suburbs.
No, he was lost in the city. He was, but, you know, we shot over 10 days. And it's great being your own producer in a way because, you know, that fight scene that happens, that was just one night's shoot. So that was, we just went, okay, we're going to do this over one night. I have to cover every single person. So there's about 8 or 9 characters by that stage. Everyone who's involved, every single thing. So there's so much coverage of that scene to get it to work in that particular way and do it safely because, you know, there's dangerous stuff going on. So we had one night for that whole scene, which was great. And then the rest of it was really, we're shooting sort of probably 10 minutes or 8 minutes of screen time a day, which is
pretty good.
Yeah, it's kind of like fast TV sort of, you know.
I think what's also interesting, you know, the way you shoot it is like a lot of realistic kind of character dramas, even, you know, ones shot on film, have like the documentary style handheld. But because you had the phone, it's like, well, you could do that. That would be the easy way to do it. But I think what's impressive is you went to lengths to make this look
traditional,
kind of slick and kind of
not shaky cam.
Yeah, it wasn't.
I had that progression as well of, you know, the start of the film. I wanted it to be very sedate and very kind of calm. And then, you know, if you take the very first frame of the film, it's Matt lying in bed asleep, and his mum saying, "Get up, it's time to go to school." And then the very last frame is a big close up on him watching something pretty horrendous. And that's the shift of the film. So I wanted to start it off very much classical kind of style, and then also do a lot of what, you know, one-ers. Do a lot of scenes, sort of not a flex, but really. I love Scorsese and the way that he uses the camera, you know, to lead like Goodfellas and those kinds of things.
Not a lot of quick cuts.
No, but when we use them, I think they have more impact.
Yeah. And it adds to that level of like
cinematography.
Yeah, it's like what do you call it? Like engagement of like instead of like cut, you know, one shot cut, you know, it's like it adds that level of there's a movement to the frame.
Well, it's like it's like art in a way that it's like you got to keep it dynamic, you got to keep it moving.
Again, you know? I think it's like, another thing that drew us in. Like letting the shot linger and that kind of adds to the immersion.
To go on a small tangent, I apologize. It's like in comic books where if you have like the older style of comic books, it's just here's one panel. But then you started to get like the Frank Miller comics, and they would introduce a bit more flexibility to the panels. And then you have the 2-page spreads with the, you know, suddenly you got the things going diagonally across the page instead of just the traditional panel setup. Which is why movies should take advantage of, like you said, the movement of the camera. Yeah. Because you can get some really interesting shots that way. Which was, like I said, the fact that it was made with a smartphone, and we get such an interesting, creative film. It's so interesting, because this was my first my first smartphone movie production that I've seen. So it was really interesting to see that it had that crisp feeling to it, and it was very artistic.
Yeah, a lot of the thought went into, because if you think about it, the camera is the audience, right? It's the only way that the audience accesses the film. And so what I really wanted to do was this sense of like a vortex almost in the earlier scenes where you're kind of just being swirling around and you're being dragged by what the kids are doing. But after the significant moment, or even just before the significant moment, it becomes handheld. I don't think there's any handheld before then. And then the handheld has a greater capability. So I stopped using locked off cameras through that sequence, and then the next morning it becomes still again. And in a way that's because you know, life goes on, but actually it doesn't. And quite often for a lot of people, I think, who escape prosecution, it can seem kind of mad that life just goes on and yet this thing happens. So so that powerful tool of using the camera, like you know, I think most good I mean, it's a really basic tool, but if you can not notice it, it's really important.
Changing direction a little bit, before we forget, the score for this movie was really nice.
Yeah.
The score was great.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about...
Score was probably the most expensive part of the whole film. It's about quarter of the budget. But it was by a mate. I was very lucky to go to a film school called AFTRS in Sydney. And I did a 2-year master's there in 2002 or something. So it's when most of you guys were born. No. But it was a traditional, go in, make 2 films a year kind of thing. And in the first year I was there, you get a composer, that you get a cinematographer, you get an editor, you get a producer, you get a writer, all of these, production designer, all of these amazing things. And I was given a composer who was this guy called John Gray. And John's gone on and done a lot of shows. He's done a lot of films, but he's done every production that I've been able to afford a composer for. And so we have this relationship. And what happens with John actually is that he'll play some music. He's a pianist traditionally, and he'll play something as a response to the script, which is really interesting. But in this case, we did struggle a bit because I really wanted to initially have a score. I really loved the film Good Time. I don't know if you guys have seen Good Time. Yeah. So I loved the score to Good Time, that is just
Synthy.
chaotic and synthy and kind of mad.
Well, for me, I got very big Angelo
Badalamenti's.
Badalamenti,
there was a couple
Twin
of
Peaks vibes.
There was a couple of scenes where
During
the
the
score
pivotal
kinda got
moment, there was this piece playing, and we were
Yeah.
like, sounds like something Angelo would have
Peaksy,
written.
yeah.
That's
Which
cool.
is very
John
stylish,
will really be happy to hear that. Yeah.
Well, like, it's that kind of, it
It
had
gets
that
go-
sonic signature, but it was like an unsettling kind
Yeah.
of, which
Yeah.
was probably what you're aiming for, but it was like perfect.
But it's the beauty of collaboration with people that you get to work with, and you trust them, is that John kept going, no, I don't think it's that. Or he'd just go, yeah, okay. And then eventually we had this conversation where he said, look, I think the point of this film is to not hide the ending. It's going to go bad. So let's say that from the start. So the start is very much like, it's coming. And then he found a theme. And from that theme, he kind of adjusts it up and down depending on the moments, and it gets lighter and it gets darker, and so it really came about in that organic way. Like, I'm not a musician, and he is, and he'd heard something, he felt something, and then it was kind of like, initially I was, I wasn't not enjoying it, but it had to, for me as a filmmaker, I had to go, yeah, okay, I trust you, John. You go down this pathway, and he did. It's beautiful. Like, I rejected cello my whole life as a filmmaker because it's like, here comes the cello, we're going to be really sad, but he was right. I think it was the right tone and it was the right instrument. Like, for Matt is the cello,
Yeah, well, we enjoyed it.
Yeah.
No, I think that was one thing about the movie that really did surprise me. Usually when movies have like a micro budget, doesn't the score kind of reflects that, but this sounded...
It wasn't that free 9 Inch Nails soundtrack that everyone uses.
Oh,
it
royalty.
wasn't royalty free MP3 files.
Which I'm sure it would have been fine if it was, but the fact that it was a piece of music that we hadn't
but
heard
it was
before.
something we specifically noted. I'm like, oh, this is actually a really amazing score.
Yeah, I mean, sound design is so important, and
we were so lucky with this post sound because, yes, we shot in April 2019, and the film was kind of cut by the end of 2019, and then
I was say it would have been a very different movie.
We went into 2020 and we're like, let's go and get some funding to finish the film, and then COVID hit. So
it's a miracle you filmed it when you did.
Yeah, well, I'm actually, I say it was cut by the end of 2019, but it wasn't actually. It was in one form. Like, I had a cut after 2 weeks, and we watched it on a big screen, and it was working. But there were interesting things, like the father's performance is so good that he really overshadowed, and we had to kind of pull him back a bit. But we were still cutting in 2020, and we were lucky. I rang a post house, said, "What are you guys doing? Have you got anything on?" He's like, "No, we're getting JobKeeper, but I have all these people sitting here, doing nothing."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Well, can we talk?" And they were fabulous. It was Daron Kippen, who runs a company called Music and Effects, and they've done a lot of great Australian films through the years. And Daron just said, "Yep, okay, we'll do a deal." And so we had I had sort of mask on in there. listening to the mix and everything. So we've got the proper 5.1 mix and all of that stuff.
Yeah,
for the
Sounds
cinema.
great.
It did sound great.
Because you can make a movie on IMAX, but if the sound's no good, then
Yeah,
there's no point.
yeah,
Also, well, tell us about the challenges now of releasing a movie, especially in this period.
yeah,
So you've got the movie so ready to go,
yeah.
but it's COVID. So what now?
So yeah, it was freaky, but we did have a cinema, not cinema. Sorry, we had a festival plan, which was, you know, when I started making the film, I went, okay, I'm going to make a feature. I'm going to make it on a smartphone, but I'm going to win every smartphone festival that I can. And I think that was a really good plan because it's, you know, a lot of this is about being noticed. And I'd seen a couple of really great smartphone films. One really good one is Blue Moon. It's a New Zealand film, which is like a crime thriller. Who's made by a cop, and so therefore they've got like police cars all through it. And but it's
Get
kind
some
of
mates help from work. Yeah,
it's kind of a cool little you know, indie noir sort of film. And then Tangerine as well.
Yeah.
And so I just didn't, you know, it's the stupidest thing in the world to make a film and not know who you're going to sell it to. But again, you know, the goal was to make it. Yeah.
But it's also exactly like, because you were just like, I just got to go out and get this done. Like, if you were like, I have to get funding, I have to find out, you know, I have to rent the lenses. It's like, and then you end up never doing it.
Yeah. And I could make, you know, if I went the Screen Australia route and, you know, maybe got $5 million from various sources to make a feature film, it might be okay, but it probably wouldn't be any better. And I could make maybe 50 films for that budget.
That's a good point, because we
Yeah.
finished the movie and the credits were rolling, and we all turned to each other and said, you know, we've seen bigger budget Hollywood movies that we didn't enjoy half as much as your movie.
Also, the movie was only 75 minutes long, but it felt appropriate.
Yeah, there was no fat on it. We were very surprised to see how just concise it all was.
I guess that's because you're making it all yourself.
Yeah.
There's no...
I did try to make it. Well, this was a mistake, and this is a writing thing for you, is I thought 1 minute of screen time is one page.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, not always the case.
So I did. I literally worked to get a 90-page script, and then I got a 70-minute film. So,
But it worked out. Like, it's, you know, there was no... It felt like, to us, a complete feature. There was no unnecessary...
To be fair to you, when I was at uni, I did a module on screenwriting.
yeah.
They all say 1 page is 1 minute.
Yeah.
So they're all lying to you, but that's
110 pages for a feature script.
That's what they teach us, but it's not. It doesn't always work out that way.
I was lucky that I had again, because I went to film school, I rang a friend of mine also during COVID, Julianne Deruva, who's an amazing editor, and she's cut a lot of great TV and documentaries. She did Girls Can't Surf, which is a recent feature doc, and she had a 2-week gap. And, you know, again, I paid her, but she took it for 2 weeks, and she actually turned it from something that was a little bit, you know, it was still a bit rough around the edges, and she just polished it. And so I think those choices, you know, she solved a lot of little problems that...
Pacing.
Yeah. I mean, there's only one scene that's not in the film that we shot. Actually, there's 2 scenes that's not in the film that we shot. And one was a scene where Teresa wakes up in the hotel, goes to the fridge, there's nothing in the fridge, there's nothing in the cupboards, and then she grabs a pack of noodles and she leaves. And that was before the dad gets brought in, and that was to kind of show her experience and her life. But it just felt different. It just didn't feel like part of the same film. And then the other one was a scene with the brother just dropping off, you know, Christian's items in the ocean, you know, at the end. Like so, but we didn't really have... It just didn't really work tonally either.
Yeah. Well, if you ever want to release the extended version, I want to see that cut.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's the actors were great, but it's just like, I don't think that the thinking had happened. I mean, there's one scene in the film that wasn't in the script that we wrote and took an extra day to shoot because I felt like we had to, which is the scene where Teresa comes home and she sees her dad. And her dad says, "Where were you?"
Oh, I think that's really important.
Yeah, it's very important. And she's fabulous in that moment because he's still in his space.
There's so much going on, yeah.
And she's like, I just thank you. She takes his hug, but then she realizes that she can't trust him.
Still not right.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And that came from, you know, we need to resolve this relationship in some way. Yeah.
It's fascinating.
That's great.
Because that was a powerful scene.
Yeah. Well... So what now? Like what now? You've edited the movie.
Yeah.
It's all ready to go. it's still during COVID, I presume.
Yes.
Did that hamper your plans to release the movie?
I had no plans to release the movie. I sort of vaguely thought people would love it and want to buy it, and I didn't actually bank on a cinema release. I thought that we would try and sell to a streamer, or I'd take it to a market. I took it to the American film market in 2019 before we shot. Actually, no, I went in 2020, just before the world went to crap. I was actually in the States, and I went to a market. No one wanted to touch a smartphone film. So
Big mistake.
Yeah.
well, yeah, it was.
I think it's weird to sort of put a decision down for having watched it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so we watched the
I
film,
think-
and one of the first things we said was it's really fascinating to see that how great this film is, because one of the last two film reviews we did, I believe, were Men and the Black Phone, and we all said this movie was, for us personally, we enjoyed this movie more than Alex Garland's Men,
Right.
and Cargill.
No, Scott Derrickson.
Yeah.
And Scott Derrickson's Black Phone.
Can I put that on the cover?
No,
Yeah, oh,
The Tuesday review says it's better than Men.
Any pull quotes you need.
no, but that's
One Punch, better than
Thank you.
all Hollywood
Thank you. No,
movies
but
ever. The Tuesday review.
pardon the phrase though, but we're not just blowing smoke up your ass.
Yeah.
It was like we said that was really not surprising because
Yeah.
good movies come out of Australia all the time, but it was really surprising to see that with a smartphone and a small budget, you did you told a better
more
story
engaging
than the heavy hitters of Hollywood have been doing lately.
I think
So
it's
the-
authenticity. Like it's this is the thing that I discovered was, I've written Tarantino-esque scripts in uni,
Yeah.
but people always say write what you know, and it didn't, for some reason, I'm stupid maybe, it didn't occur to me that you have to experience the ups and downs of life and really to understand.
And that's also
Yeah.
a quote that's infamously taken out of context.
I
'cause
think
it's,
so, yeah.
It's one of those things that, again, they teach you in writing school, and every writer will come out and say, oh, well, you've got to write what you know. But, like, a great example of this is George R. Martin, right? And not George R. Martin, I'm sorry. The gentleman who writes the Drizzt novels.
Oh, yes.
R.A. Salvatore.
R.A. Salvatore, yeah.
He was a bouncer, and so
Yeah.
when he knew the choreography that goes on behind fights.
Yeah.
I think it was him.
Do you live in really cold climates, though, as well?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, though. So it's
He's a favourite of mine.
It's
too.
this notion
Yeah.
that, like, there's people who only write crime novels because they work in they're a lawyer or they work in the police department or whatever.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's you write the things that, not that you've experienced directly,
Yeah.
but the things that you can relate to.
No, I'd experienced
Yeah.
that violent, situation, but then I'd found this actor, and putting the two of those things together was a chance for me to explore an idea, and that's
Yeah.
what I think Write What You Know is about.
Yeah.
So we haven't got a sale or anything yet. We're really trying to get a sale to a streamer, maybe even get it seen overseas. But for now, it's sort of we're screening it like those places. We're screening in Brisbane and Sydney and Perth and Adelaide through September, which is all pretty great. Sydney's sold out. Brisbane's almost sold out. So a lot of that's pulling our network in. But yeah.
Yeah, because you did mention how you tried to sell it and they weren't interested. And I think it's like what I was saying earlier is like the stigma of saying, oh, this was shot on a smartphone. People have in their head already like, well, I know what that is. It's going to be like a TikTok, YouTube video. And it's like, no. You can do so much incredible things.
Yeah.
And you're evidence of that.
The point I was going to make before I went off on my tangents, I'm sorry, was that ironically, they didn't pick up what was probably one of the better films in the market at the time.
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah. Because, like I said, like
Not
like I
to
said,
blow smoke.
we watch movies all the time, and most
Yeah.
of them aren't as good as One Punch.
I mean, it's especially weird considering the drought that's going on through COVID with
Yeah.
films
Yeah.
anyway.
The American film market is a unique market. It's kind of like Comic-Con in as much as it's sort of false, if I can say that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
like,
we talk
we
about
know
that all the
there's a
time.
lot
Yeah.
of people who talk a lot, but the American film market is not, and so it's very strange. There's a lot of plastic surgery going on there. But yeah, and I mean the big film at that market was 21 Bridges, I think, which was the Chadwick Boseman film,
Yeah.
and but that's not necessarily a great film, and so it's not a peak market. But it was just it is very demoralising when you make something. you make it because you want people to watch it, you know, and you want
Yeah.
them to feel something.
Well, we talk we've actually been going off on a bit of a rant lately on the show about the over commercialization of art in general, not just movies, but like the scales have been tipping less towards the art direction and more towards what can we sell, like cynically, what can we sell the most to customers? Well,
the package,
it's like the Netflix situation where they cancel everything because once they've got the amount of subs they need for that particular product, they move on.
I don't know. Have you guys seen The Grey Man at all? Or?
We have.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. Watch
I
it.
have seen The Grey Man.
Is it worth watching? Or
It's okay.
yeah, I mean, I think that's
But
the
Nathan
thing.
has questionable taste.
But I have questionable taste.
No, I'm
Look,
thinking I'm thinking that movie
it's
you
a
told us
by
to
the
watch.
it's a by the numbers action
No,
blockbuster.
it's a different one.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
So-
talking about though, right? That one that's on Disney Plus, the horror film.
That's The Empty Man.
I'm thinking of The Empty Man. I'm sorry.
That we have to discuss that another time. But because we talk a lot about like filmmaking has always been a compromise between art and commerce.
Yeah.
I think over the last 10, 20 years, it's gone full to the commerce side.
Yeah.
And I think what's great about your film and what I appreciate about it is that because you had the ability to just go out and shoot it, you would you did it. Obviously, you want people to see it, and you want people, you want to sell it to a certain
But it's
extent.
uncompromised.
But you were like, I want to make this because I am a filmmaker and I want to present this story that is personal to me.
There's
and
no political
resonates
correctness
with
in it.
people.
Yeah.
Which again, it's authentic to the area.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? It's just like it's like you made a film because you wanted to make a film and not because
And that's what art should be.
there was a brand behind it, or
That's where the best art comes from. It's from a person creating
and
something.
research. Like, have you guys ever been to Billboards?
no.
It's like the worst nightclub in Melbourne,
Yeah.
in Swanston
I've
Street.
heard of it.
yeah.
I feel like
Yeah.
Alum should have been here.
Yeah, I know.
If you want to like
Alan's
just
probably been drunk there.
if you drop a match on the floor, the whole place will go up. In hairspray and alcohol. So, but we went to places like that. But yeah, absolutely. Like a lot of my contemporaries who are making films, they're making films about the water polo team that wasn't so good, but now they're going to be great, and they want to sell it to
it's
Disney
sellable,
because there's money funding that, and it's really depressing because you've got these great creatives who are working on stuff that even kids don't want to watch, but for some reason it fills a hole somewhere in the US or.
I talk about all the time on the shows movies as content. It's we're not making a movie or a show because it's a good thing to make. We're moving because we need to have something on our service or fill a screen somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what I appreciate about your movie. It's like you made it, and it's like okay, you made it because that's what you want to make, and now you did. Not sell it. What's the word? Enter it into several
markets.
Festivals.
Film festivals.
Yeah.
And you won 8 awards that I counted.
Congratulations.
All around the world. And now you've brought it back to Australia.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that process of like you entered it all? You get some recognition.
Were there any "I told you so" moments?
Yeah, well, there's got to be some vindication.
I don't think that's. I mean, like we talked about being empathetic and kind. Like that's certainly not me. I would love to have a story of this person took my call, or I submitted it to MIF, I submitted it to Sydney, I submitted it to Brisbane, I submitted it to Sydney Fest Oz, I submitted it to all the big Australian film festivals, and none of them took it.
It's so bizarre.
I don't know if it even got watched. I mean, particularly MIF, I think it's really disappointing because it's a film that is about
They should
Melbourne.
be celebrating Australian films, really.
But I think that their remit is to celebrate international films. They bring international films in and we watch them. So that there's a large element of that. And, but it is disappointing not to have any... I've spoken to Screen Victoria or Vic Screen or whatever they're called now and said, hey, can you put me on your newsletter? Absolutely crickets, nothing. So I don't know what's going on there. I don't think I was drunk and rude to anyone, but maybe in a past life I've done something bad. But it's just really baffling and difficult. And but that doesn't mean... Like I've proven that doesn't matter. You just find another way.
Oh look! At least on the old resume, you've got. Look, I won these 8 awards.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. That's enough of the quality assurance I need.
And that was the other thinking was, okay, if I do want to make a film, why don't I go and prove it on my own dime and go and do it? And so now if I do go to make a film, I've got one here, and I learned so much. Like this is the biggest thing to anyone who wants to make a film is I learnt so much by making a film, not
That's
by
the only way
thinking
you can
about
learn.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I learnt. You asked before about the shots are wider. I'm a huge Kurosawa fan.
Oh, me too.
And The Seven Samurai is this film that always
You're speaking my
sticks
language.
with me because at the
Typical
beginning of the film,
nerds.
it's like, well, it's but he's really great. Like he doesn't use the close up too much.
Yeah.
And in my earlier short films, I'd used the close up too much because I had a nice camera and it looked really good. And it's like, oh, yeah.
You think that's what you're supposed to do.
But that's the thing that you hold and you hold off and you don't, you use so in the beginning of The Seven Samurai, it's like wide shot, let's run away. The other people go, no, let's hide. And the other people go,
You let it play out.
let's kill ourselves.
Yeah.
And it gets bad. And then one guy stands up into a big close up and he says, let's fight.
Yeah.
And it's like, boom, the moment the film kicks in,
Yeah.
right?
So like I said earlier, it's like a lot of films make the mistake of, we have to be filmic by cut
Yeah.
to this guy, cut to this guy,
You have to
cut to
im-
this
you have to
angle,
imitate
cut to
the
this.
greats,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's like we were talking about Scorsese. It's like, no, you can just let the camera move in a bit.
Mm.
You can just let things play out. You can let. It's like it makes for a more polished, kind of smoother, better movie.
Bringing it back to the I guess
So
the topic
the festivals,
again,
you
before
win,
we get carried away,
win all the
yeah.
awards. You mentioned Demand Film.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that process? Did you submit it to them and say, "Can you please release this"? Did they?
It's
what
still
happened?
a relationship industry, I think, on a large scale. Like you guys were saying, you work in retail. You would know someone who works at that place that you
Yeah.
can talk
Yeah.
to and get
Who
something
you know,
in.
not what you know, kind of thing.
So John, the composer, his partner is actually a producer in Sydney, and she came to a screening of the film, and she's like, "This is bloody amazing!
Yeah.
Why aren't more people watching this?" And so she kind of took up the mantle a bit and connected me to a few people, and connected me to David from Demand Film. And basically what they do is they'll take films from all around. They're in the States, they're in the UK as well, and they'll set up a screening and they divide the cost. So the cinema takes about half the ticket sales, and then the other half is divided equally between Demand and ourselves. But what they do is when we get to a certain level, they will do marketing. So we'll probably never see anything from the cinema release, but people will see the film, and they will understand, the process, and that will help, I guess, build the profile a little bit. And it's such a, like, I can't think of anything, like it'd be like playing cricket for Australia, or sorry, I'm cricket tragic, but or doing something really amazing. It's to have a film in the cinema is just going to be really beautiful.
It's probably a very emotional experience.
Yeah, I think it is, because I've been in the cinema for festivals, but that's kind of a little bit different as well, because well, first of all,
they're not necessarily paying just to see your
yeah, and also it was post-COVID. Lots of people didn't turn up, so, but this, we know we're going to have packed
Full
houses
cinema,
and we'll have
The
a Q&A.
The magic will be there.
Yeah,
And the fact that people finally get to see, people have seen your film, people like us, lucky enough, but the general audience, to actually have people seeing your film, reacting to your film, talking about your film. Are you going to be present at the first screenings of your film?
I'll be at all the screenings of the film, yeah.
Cool.
So I'm going to travel around. And
it'll be a really amazing experience to be there. Kevin Smith does this with his films now, where he takes it on a road show. And the best parts for him are he gets to see the people, how they react. He gets to talk to them, get their feelings.
Well, that's again a similar issue. He couldn't get funding for his movies. He had to do it himself.
Yeah, which is
At
ridiculous,
least
right?
His build up, you think he would be able to get a small.
He's
budget
an
movie
American
made?
auteur. I mean, maybe he's made too much TV, and
Maybe.
He-Man's not that great, but
Well, it's interesting because him, I'm not going to compare you to Kevin Smith because you're very different filmmakers.
Yeah.
But once he had the success of Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, the production companies were like, okay, we can see you're still viable.
Yeah.
So maybe now that you have a winner under your belt, so to speak, would you be interested in maybe making another movie at some point?
absolutely.
What's next?
So
Do you have anything planned?
During COVID, I also decided to start my doctorate, because there's an amazing guy at Swinburne Uni called Max Schlesser. And Max is kind of like the mobile guru in Australia and in the world, really. He did a lot of the early mobile documentaries with old 3G phones and stuff. And he's a great experimental filmmaker, and he's Dr. Max Schlesser, I should say, but I can't. But he I got talking to him and decided, okay, I'll do a doctorate, which is, pretty
Daunting.
silly, really.
Yeah.
But we'll see how that goes as part-time. But as part of that doctorate, I make an artifact. I make a film and I document the process of making the film.
Cool.
That'll be interesting.
So I want to use the same process again, yeah. I'm literally waiting for the next phone to come out, and we'll see what that's like.
Claim that on your tax.
And then I will. I've got some actors working already, so we're working on
Nice,
characters.
nice. Awesome.
Exciting. I'm excited.
So literally last week, on the weekend before I listened to your the rehearsal pod, I was talking to an actor, basically going through his characters and saying, "Okay, well, can you follow this guy around?" And so I was like, "Oh,
Which gives us
okay."
immense joy.
Did you warn him that if done incorrectly, you could ruin someone's life?
No, but I hadn't thought before about actually putting a wig on or something. And,
becoming the actor.
The thrifty boy look.
Yeah.
Maybe your next project should be a remake of One Punch where you play Matt
Yeah.
with a wig and pretend to be an
But I-
18-year-old.
Well,
That's kind of what happened. No, yeah. So yes, sorry.
we're getting ahead of ourselves. How can people buy tickets?
People can
Yeah.
buy tickets by going to, if you Google Demand Film, there's a whole bunch of films up there that you can look at, and then One Punch has got obviously a poster of Matt on the front. So if you just go to Demand Films, you can then go in, click on the link for One Punch, and they'll have the different screenings, and you can go and buy a ticket from there.
There's 4 screenings in Victoria.
Yep.
Geelong, Elstonwick, Hawthorn and Mildura.
Yep.
And then there's also screenings in South Australia, Queensland, New South Wales and Western Australia. So if you're listening around Australia, you can see it.
Allegedly, we have a listener in Western Australia. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need that person.
So I think
Honestly, if you
it's-
are listening, do look into buying
yeah.
tickets. It's,
So
it's
the
an incredible
first week or two of September, there's lots of screenings. So make sure you go to Demand Film. Do you have social media or a website for
Yes,
the movie?
we've got a Facebook page for the movie, which is One Punch Feature Film, which is the Facebook page, and my Instagram handle, which is Danger Das. So
Soon that'll be Dr. Danger.
Yeah,
Das.
Dr. Danger Das. Not that soon. No, it's probably 7 years away. But yeah, it's and then I've got the company is Rooftop Film Co., which is my film company. So, but main one's probably One Punch Feature Film on Facebook. Yeah, please come.
We'll have all the details of the screening and so on our social media. I have one more question before we wrap up.
Sure.
And you'll forgive me. I read in your bio that you were a production runner during the production of Pitch Black.
Yes, I was.
Which is
Do you
one of
want
my
some
favourite
stories?
movies.
I got the
Oh.
best story from
The,
it.
Okay,
The
can you
Pitch
t-
Black?
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
with Vinny Diesel.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the film where I got fired for driving Vin Diesel too fast.
Are you serious?
What?
I am serious. Yeah, I didn't get fired. I wasn't allowed to drive Vin anymore.
Okay.
So I was Vin's.
What's he like?
He's great bloke, lovely bloke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He plays D&D. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. He's like
This is going in the air, I'm sorry.
movie stars get a bad rap sometimes because they're in their trailer. You know, they need that trailer to be away from everything and do their work. He was fine. But I everyone went to Cooper Pedy for the shoot at one stage, and I stayed at the studios as the runner in the studios. So 2 interesting things happened as a result of that. One was the production secretary said, when you go pick everyone up from the airport, you can sign for all their cars, so they can just pick up their cars, put your Qantas frequent flyer points on all the things, so you'll get all these frequent flyer points.
Nice.
And you'll be able to, so which I did, and then got in a lot of trouble for because all of these people wanted their frequent flyer points from their cars. So that was that. And then I was driving Vin back from the Brisbane airport to his place on the Gold Coast, and I was pretty tired. I was working six days a week, 12 hours a day, and I just noticed his fingers were kind of clenching on the armrest, and then I'm like, I look at him and I go, "You okay?" He's like, "Oh man, you're going a bit too fast," and I'm going 160, and so I slow down, I drop him off, and I get back to the studios, and the production coordinator calls me in and says, "Oh look, you're not driving Vin anymore. He doesn't want you to drive him. He doesn't think you're safe enough. You drive too fast." And that's like, I think that's hilarious considering what he does for a living now. But no, he was an absolute gentleman and Yeah, very generous, very friendly to everyone on set, very focused, very
I
professional.
think D&D breeds empathy.
Yeah.
That's it. That's
Yeah,
it.
oh, he's absolutely an
Breeds
empathetic.
And he
kindness.
plays World of Warcraft too. Is it?
This was, of course, 20-something years ago, so it's
Yeah.
1988.
Well,
That's
thank you for satisfying my nerd. I was just like, yes, Pitch Black.
Yeah.
I gotta ask him. Well, do we? It looks like Matt's not coming in for his show. Should we end this and do a bonus episode, or just keep it going?
It's up to Darcy. He's the
I'm
guest.
fine to stay. Yeah.
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 Well, look, we'll go to a very quick break, and we'll be back right after this. You're back on the Tuesday review. This is the end of the episode for
Yes.
now.
Thank you very much for Darcy for coming in and talking about his wonderful movie and for letting us watch it.
And
Pleasure.
berate you with questions.
That's
Yeah.
a pleasure,
Yeah.
guys. I can be the second filmmaker on your amazing podcast. So
Oh, no, thank you
hopefully
very
not
much.
the last.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely not.
And-
No.
Look, please come back if
And
you
hopefully,
need
yeah, please come back, and especially when you make whatever you're doing next.
Yep.
And if you ever need a Patreon, if you're ever kickstarting a movie,
Yep.
I would be happy to
Oh,
definitely.
chip in.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
No, but it's always a pleasure because we spend so much time talking about movies because like we're technically we advertise ourselves as a review show, but we're really I always say to James we deconstruct films because we're more interested in the looking at things
Yeah,
and
why
discussing
things are the way they are.
Yeah.
So it's we're often in our own head so to speak about movies and we complain a lot, not all the time. But I'd say we're about 60,
Most of the time.
Yeah, 65% we complain.
80%.
It's always nice to have someone in who actually works in the industry who's made a film because we have experience in certain areas of whatever, but
So, yeah.
we don't have people like
Yeah.
yourself in all the time, so it's a pleasure for you to be here today.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
You can catch the Tuesday review on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you listen.
Yep.
Anchor.
Like and share the Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, at Tuesday Review AU, and we will have all of Darcy and the One Punch information up on there.
Adios, cousins.